Larry, managing editor of the Herald newspaper. Larry Dogwe, welcome.
Thank you.
You're also returning. Good to have you back. And then I have in the far right corner, Bernard Avle, the numbers guy. The exciting part is coming up, and he's going to take us through why we're seeing that numbers. Bernard will join us in a bit. We'll start with the Greater Accra region. But before we start with the Greater Accra region, we'll go around the region. We're hearing and seeing some amount of confusion around the collation centers. The military going to those collation centers. We don't know whether the police have triggered for them to go there. Instances around Wage Agbawe, among others. We'll go there in a bit. But let me take initial comments from you. You've seen some of the numbers. You're seeing what is going on. Patterns being formed here and there. We'll start with the Western region. Earlier, I'm sure you saw Akweseni Meje saying that the Western region may have fallen for the Greens. Is that shocking?
That would be a considerable shock, looking at where the Western region has been. I mean, in the last election, in the 2020, if you look at it, out of the 17 constituencies there, the NPP won 10, the NDC had 7. If you look at the numbers, Anado had 439,724 to the NDC's 398,549, and by that I mean with the presidential. So to have that kind of turnaround would be interesting. Again, if we were to go back one more election to 2016, for instance, in the Western region. I'm sorry, I think my internet. But staying with the 2020, if you look at the 2020 results, for instance, for the Western region, you would see that in NIM's analysis and his prediction of what is about to happen when the numbers start trickling in gives room for considerable surprise, especially some of the places that he seems to be mentioning. And once we have a confirmation of those, we will be able to break it down.
Okay. Right. Larry.
Yeah.
Western region going towards the green. Are you surprised with that?
No, I'm not. Yeah, I'm not. Because I think in 2020, the signs were there.
Okay.
Most of the people who won on the ticket of MPP won marginally. Okay, so second D, for instance. And then even Joe Gatte's constituency.
It's Ikado.
Exactly. So it was just a marginal win. Takwa, Isioyem, also.
That was close.
That was also close. And then so many constituencies in the Western region were so close. So, I mean, to a point where people started complaining that most of the results were changed.
Okay.
Okay. After the NDC went out jubilating.
Okay.
So
let me, Larry, hold with your thought. I'll come back to you. Let me quickly go to Wage Agbawe, where we're told there's some presence of military personnel trying to calm down issues, or what exactly are they doing there? Sarah Apia is our lady there. Sarah, if you can hear me, welcome.
I can hear you loud and clear.
What's the situation? Is that the case that military personnel are there, and what are they doing there?
So the military personnel came in, they were armed, although currently they have stepped out, but they came in to issue a warning to the perpetrators of the disturbances here at the collation center. According to what I gathered from what is going on here, the returning officer here issued a directive for a rep, each party to have a rep at the collation table. But it seems one particular party, which I do not know whether that is party A or B, decided to have 2 reps at the collation table, and that is what caused the commotion. So the military personnel had to come in to issue a warning to the perpetrators that they should be warned, because if they are allowed to be here in the collation center, it means they respect them, so they should be warned. So they were sort of issuing a warning to them to be careful not to do anything that will sort of call them to act. in a manner that will cause mayhem or whatsoever. So that is the situation here at the Fitness First Health Club Collation Center in the Wejak-Bawe constituency.
Okay. These military men, are they still there or they have left?
So they stepped out, but they stepped out currently. I'm not seeing them in sight at the moment. We only have the police and fire service personnel here on the ground. But for the military, I'm not seeing them in sight at the moment.
Right. The police, do we know whether they triggered it for the military to come there or they came, you know, their own accord?
All right. So for we, the media guys, we are inside the collation center. So the police personnel, they are outside. Most of them are outside. So we just saw that the military men just came in. So as to whether or not the police personnel were the ones that called the military personnel to come in for backup, for that I cannot tell.
Okay. All right. Stay safe. Sarah, will come to you as and when. Thank you very much, Sarah Pia, our lady at Wejak-Bawe, bringing us up to speed on the latest development in that constituency where some military men were at the coalition center. We are told to warn some of the party agents to stay in order or else they will act. What kind of act they will do, we'll see if that, you know, yes.
I must add before we go to Larry that we need to mention that a lot of this has been heightened by the ECs. I would say the process at this stage has been slow, for want of a better word. The EC needs to work a bit faster.
People are becoming pretty anxious.
Yes, and the anxiety is not helping. Okay, so whatever it is that is holding up the EC's processes, they need to figure out their workflow and get through with it quickly. They are the ones who said elections are won at the polling station.
Yeah.
Votes left the polling station a long while ago. So what exactly is the holdup?
Yeah.
It would be interesting to know what the holdup is. And I appreciate the fact that they did 4 presses today. They would say they are tired, but the whole country is awake. Why are they sleeping? So I'm not saying they are literally asleep, but I'm just saying it would have made sense to keep the updates going so that people understand what the holdup is. Because in my experience, I don't think we've covered an election where 8 hours after polls closed, you are unable to conclusively declare a single constituency.
Yeah.
You know, that doesn't work.
Okay. I'll bring, Larry, I'll let you comment in a bit, but let me bring in Bernard Avle. It looks like we have an idea where the Greater Accra region is going towards. Bernard is going to take us through the numbers we have so far and why we believe the Greater Accra region is towing towards a particular color. Bernard, welcome.
Thank you, Vivian.
What do you have? Let's start.
I think it's safe to say that we have presidential projection for Greater Accra.
Okay.
But I'll explain what I mean by that. So the Greater Accra region is a region that has 34 constituencies. And in 2020, John Mahama had 50.9% and Nanado had 48%. We can safely say, based on what we've seen, John Mahama is well above 56% of Greater Accra region. We don't have all the constituencies. Now, what we are doing is what I call a polling station cluster analysis. So that's basically picking specific polling stations within a constituency that represent the average performance of that constituency. When you do that cluster analysis, the trend is very clear. Even with places that MPP won in 2020 for presidential, like Amasaman, you're seeing gains for NDC for presidential and losses for the MPP. Domi Kwabinya, you're seeing the same thing. So even Trobu, so places that MPP traditionally used to win, our polling station class analysis tells us that the NDC's presidential candidate has made strong inroads. Tema Central, Domi Kwabinya, Trobu. Places that NDC won, they've strengthened.
And this is presidential.
Presidential. The other thing that analysis tells us is that there is expected lower turnout in the Greater Accra region. And some of the constituencies will bear me out. So, for example, I will show you Amasaman. Amasaman on the performance of the MPP was a constituency NDC used to win, and MPP took it over in 2020. But what we are seeing right now tells us that NDC's presidential candidate is going to win Amasaman and win it quite handsomely. Okay. Just give me a minute, I'll get to it.
So Amasaman gets the green.
Amasaman
will
go
we're
green.
seeing.
Amasaman will go green. Forgive me. I'll get it for you shortly. Amasaman will go green, and a lot of the greens will turn deeper green.
Okay. Amasaman
yes.
in 2020.
Yes.
Amasaman has in Parliament, but let me just give you the presidency for the presidential for Amasaman then. In the Amasaman constituency, Kufuado had 56,700.
56,000.
Yes,
okay.
735. John Dramani Mahama 54,655.
Okay.
Now, if we went back to 2016, the NDC had won that seat and then won it again in 2012, and then lost it in 2020.
Yeah. Okay. So sorry about the delay. So basically, what we're saying is that if you look at the analysis we've done, the MPPs, the cluster of polling stations we chose, they are dropping in Amasaman constituency by quite a serious percentage. All right. Now, the reason I say there's going to be a turnout issue as well is that the average polling stations we chose in Amasaman, NDC still wins.
Okay.
But their number of votes is percentage-wise less than what they had previously. So there's a general turnout problem in the region. But it's affecting the MPP inordinately. Okay. You see this in Trobu, you see this in Dome Kwabinya, you see this in Tema Central, you see this in Tema West. All these places in 2020, MPP won. MPP won Tema West in 2020 presidential. NDC is going to win it for 2024 presidential. It's very clear. Now, even Dome Kwabinya, which was strongly MPP, from the numbers we're seeing, even if MPP wins it, will be a very marginal victory. And that is very serious. The other information we have is the level of lower turnout that we're seeing all across. Now, I need to show you the correlation between turnout and electoral outcomes for both the region and nationally. So generally, if you could permit me to go to the other side, generally, when there's a so this is Greater Accra region's turnout from 1996. All right. Generally, the region's turnout correlates with the national turnout. All right. So the highest turnout was 2004, which correlates with the highest turnout in the national election. That was Kufuor's second term bid. Low turnout correlates with changes in government. All right. So in 2000, look at the regional turnout, 59 for Greater Accra. 2008, 67. What happened in 2008? 2016, what was the turnout? 66. So the lowest turnouts always coincide with a change in government. So what we are seeing in Greater Accra is that the numbers are not that high for turnout. And number two, MPP is losing ground in the clusters of polling stations we've chosen to represent the whole constituency very seriously. So this line is going to go down for the region. This line is going to go down for it. Now, I need to show you the national picture for turnout to show that what I'm saying is not just
Accra. But from what you've gleaned so far, in
Yes.
terms of the numbers for Greater Accra, are we seeing 50 or less than 50 in terms of the turnout?
We don't have all that is an exact number.
Okay.
We are with our estimate. This is the national turnout picture, just to clarify this point. First time there was a change in government, properly so-called, was year 2000. The turnout was 63%. So I use 70% as the benchmark. 2004, Kufuor had 85% national turnout. 2008, when Mills came back, it's 69. 2012, Mahama wins, is close to 80. 2016, when Akufo-Addo wins, he's below 70. 2020, he wins, is back to 79.5. So if the time series is anything to go by, the national turnout is going to go back to below 70. That is clear. The reason we are sure of this is that Greater Accra has become the most important region. We've done 23 constituencies in the Greater Accra region. John Mahama won the region with 50.7% of the votes. All right?
Yeah.
So this is John Mahama's victory in Greater Accra, 50.97. The challenge MPP has is that their turnouts are very low. So you pick even this constituency, Okankwe Central. When you take the average cluster, the MPP's numbers are very low. So traditionally strong MPP constituencies, Tema Central, Okankwe Central, Dome Kwabenya, Trobu, their numbers are not showing. And NDC is retaining its performance in its strongholds and doing better in its weak areas across the 24 constituencies we've done. So if this, and by the way, this is the only swing region that NDC won in 2020. I can show you that just to remind you of the national picture. So if you pick, now take a closer look at this. In your 10 region analysis, only Greater Accra switched to green. In fact, let me even make it a heat map for you. Only this region switched. Bono, Western Central all stayed with MPP from 2016. So already the trend that they started, they seem to have made it worse. And when I look at the average fall of MPP in its strongholds in the Greater Accra region, we can go through them one by one. It is very serious when you pick those clusters. Now, I need to explain something. No media organization has polling station results in 40,860 polling stations. So what you do is you do a cluster analysis of representative polling stations. And Vivian, if you take a representative polling station in Greater Accra, the comparison of the results from 2024 to 2020 will show you clearly where the election is going.
Okay.
So when your reporters were giving you the 2024 results, we were just basically comparing it to the 2020 numbers. That's basically what we're doing.
Okay.
And for almost every result you took, there was an MPP drop and there was an NDC gain compared to 2020. So it's very clear. Yeah. And we've done almost 25 now across the region. The ones we have not done yet are the strongholds of NDC, like Domi Abra Obom, Ada, and Shai Osudoku. So in the competitive constituencies like Medina in Adenta, NPP's drop is very significant in the clusters we've chosen now. A cluster analysis doesn't mean that you have all, because there are polling stations that are strongholds of parties. So NPP stronghold may turn out some numbers in constituencies. Every constituency has strongholds. So for example, if you take a place like La, there are parts of La that will vote for MPP, that will vote for NDC. Yeah. But when you take the cluster, which is the average cluster, the MPP is losing significant numbers in both turnout and numbers, and NPP is getting. And we can go through them one by one after you do your.
I'll let you start now, taking us through the exact constituencies, especially the ones that on a normal day or perhaps the last election, the MPP was in charge of that. But let me take you to the Odododiodio constituency. That is a typical green constituency. Ni Ayikwe Okan is our man there. He gave us the latest with regards to the results. We're told that they're close to declaring the results there. And you can hear the chanting already from the background. Ayikwe Okan, welcome.
Thank you, Vivian.
I'm hearing some chanting. What's the latest? The declaration
Yes.
done?
So we can have the NDC parliamentary candidate after Nico at the other collection center addressing the media. So I'll get in touch with him later and we'll begin.
Sure.
Well, I knew the NDC guy was no much. The only thing was to share money. And the secret in politics, not even relationship, but politics is relationship. I have this relationship, very good one with the people. So, I mean,
If you can hear me, if you can get closer or get him to speak up.
I did what I have to do. People notice my media presence wasn't too strong and people were worried.
All right. Well, we'll try to get the sound to move up a bit. It's pretty low, making it difficult for us as well as I'm sure our viewers to hear. But let's come back to Greater Accra region. Odododiodio is already coming in. Obviously, the Greens have it there. But let's go one by one.
Yes.
Let's start with the constituencies that the Blues had it in 2020.
So in 2020, Amasaman, Nanado had 50.47%, John Mahama had 48.6%.
Okay.
This was the second time that the MPP had sort of, in 2016, even though MPP won the result, election nationwide, John Mahama won Amasaman, he had 53%, and Nanado had 46%. In 2020, even though NDC recovered the region, MPP made inroads into Amasaman and got 50.4%. All right. Now, what you're seeing with the NDC is now, the average cluster is just 192 per polling station, down from 199. But look at the MPP average, 191 coming down to 124. Clearly, there's a problem for MPP in Amasaman. And this is for presidential. I could do this for a number of Greater Accra constituencies. And Vivian, the trend is the same. You are noticing, look at Dome Kwabenya. All right. Yes, MPP won Dome Kwabenya in 2020. But their average for the cluster has reduced to 113. All right. Now, this tells you that NDC will gain. NDC is making gains in Dome Kwabenya, whilst MPP is making losses. It's just a question of how MPP will behave in their strongholds. So they probably could still take it. But look at the drop. 2020 is the first bar, 2024 is the second bar, right? So NDC, pretty similar performance. But what you're seeing with MPP's drop in Dome Kwabenya for presidential tells you that the gap is going to be very close. Don't forget, it used to be 60 to 40%, 28,000 gap. There's not going to be a 28,000 gap in Dome Kwabenya.
So from what you're saying with Dome Kwabenya, for example.
Yes. I'm not saying NDC has won it because this is a cluster of average. There will be places that turnout in strongholds will be higher. But what the model tells you is that there's definitely going to be a much tighter race, even in the parliamentary, because of this. Sure. All right, we can pick another one that you know has been doing well for MPP. And then you compare the performance and say, wow, what's going on with these numbers? So I've shown you Dome Kwabenya. Let me find Trobu if I can and see what I'll show you there. Trobu is also a stronghold of the MPP. The numbers we are seeing suggest that there's going to be a much closer race in Trobu than we have ever seen. Already, we've seen some constituencies like Tema Central, where the presidential figures are looking very interesting for the NDC. All right? Now, I'm just getting Trobu for you briefly. It's mixed up. I'll get it for you shortly. But the Trobu constituency numbers are mighty close, Vivian. Not the 30,000. Trobu gave you 30,000 gap in 2020. There's not going to be a 30,000 gap in 2020 in Trobu. Wow. There's not going to be a 30,000 gap in 2020 in Trobu. Meanwhile, places like Odododiodio, NDC has consolidated.
Still,
So he was coming to report that. I'll find out for you. Their performance has not reduced, but MPP performance has reduced in Odododiodio. So there definitely is a problem. Forgive me, this is a new system I'm just trying to put together for you. So I'll find a constituency for you. All right, so there we go. I just did Amasaman. Let me do a few of the others. So Ayawaso Central, for example, interesting numbers we're seeing, right? Look at the drop for the MPP in presidential. From 218 to 131 average, all right? NDC's number is a bit slightly less, but basically it's quite high. So Ayawaso Central presidential, based on our model, is going to the NDC. Okay. Look at what's happening there. Now, you can go to others. And
let's see our constituency, Okankwe Central.
Okankwe Central. Let me just find it for you. Okankwe Central.
This is typically we see go towards the blue. Let's see how it's looking like for 2024.
It will definitely be much closer than it was in 2020 because, as you know, it's one of the supposedly safe constituencies for the NPP. But now it's much, much closer. And Baba Sadiq has a lot to say about that now. And a lot of these presidential races also are proxies. Look at what we're seeing.
Wow.
The average cluster we have, there's a drop for the MPP. NDC's performance is holding its performance. The NPP's performance is dropping in Okankwe Central. All right? Okankwe North as well.
North,
NDC took it for the first time in 2020.
Yeah.
They are going to retain it presidential. It's very clear that Okankwe North is not going blue. It's going to remain green for the NDC, for the presidential. And mind you, these are presidential estimates. The parliamentary races are a bit different because there are fewer people, but the presidential, when you look at the model, basically what GUM did in 2020 is what Cheddar is doing in 2024. For all the numbers we've seen for the region, in the 2020 numbers, you would have NDC MPP in the hundreds, and then you would have GUM in the tens. Yeah. It's very clear that Cheddar is in the number 3 position for many of the constituencies.
So I was listening to the results earlier, and you know, a bit of surprise there. Alan is not popping up at all.
At all. Alan is not showing. So I was telling you about Odododiodio. Yeah. So the reason I know turnout to be lower for this election is the average number is coming down 223, 208. They've still won it. But look at MPP. So the MPP folk, so MPP's drop is more than 50%. Yeah. All right. This story repeats itself even through Tema. So far, Tema West presidential is green, based on the model.
Now, this level of apathy, is it coming from the supporters of the MPP, or is it general apathy in the Greater Accra region?
It's a very important question because the NDC, based on the flip we're seeing, the NDC will increase their percentage, but there's a general urban apathy. Don't forget when we did the NCC survey, the voter intention for Greater Accra was 70.
That's right.
So, but NDC voters went out to vote. There are some middle class people who said they're probably not going to vote. A lot of MPP just basically stayed away. That's what we're seeing. Because the reduction in the size of their numbers, if the beggars believe. I wanted to show you Tema West, if my model will show you. Because Tema West has been strong. Okay, not strong, it's been close. But MPP has always managed to hold it. All right, what are we seeing in Tema West? Look at that.
Wow.
So NDC, as James Enu is the parliamentary candidate. We haven't gone to parliament yet, but this is president. 262 for the cluster is 258 average. All right. Look at MPP. So
reduced.
Tema West for president is green. Because it tells you that what NDC has done is that they've managed to get their base to vote.
Yeah.
What is happening is that the MPP's performance has just dipped. Let me do Tema Central because I thought that was quite interesting because of the